Hey guys, welcome back to another Monday Critique. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday. I'm having a great Monday. Look, I just want to make a quick announcement. This is video number 20. Looking back at video number 1 to video number 20, I never thought when I thought about this idea of doing these video critiques that we would have 20 videos in. So to all the people that submitted your photos to be critiqued, I sincerely appreciate it. You guys absolutely made this happen. We wouldn't have 20 videos without you guys submitting your images. So with that said, I just want to let you know that these two images that we're about to critique are pretty much the last images that were submitted. So if you guys want to have these videos continue and you want your images to be critiqued, then you know what you need to do, which is submit those images to be critiqued, and we'll continue to keep these videos going. I will continue to do the videos as long as there are images to critique. Now, that being said, given that there's currently no images to be critiqued, if you guys do submit images after this video is uploaded, then what will happen is I will definitely miss the next Monday critique because those submissions will probably come in a little bit too late. But please submit your images and I will critique those images, not next Monday, but the Monday after. So guys, please submit your images and we can get these Monday critique videos going, or I should say continue to be going. So I will look forward to those. Again, the instructions to submit those images will be coming up after this intro. So I look forward to critiquing these two images. So guys, I will see you after this intro. If you guys want to submit your image to be critiqued, please join our Facebook group. It's called Fine Art Photography and Modeling. In that group, I created a specific thread where you could submit your images to be critiqued. All right, guys, welcome back. Sorry for that long intro, but I just wanted to make that announcement really quickly. Now, like I said, we have two fantastic images to critique. And the first image on deck is by this gentleman. Rico, thank you very much for submitting your image. Rico had submitted images before. Rico is an awesome photographer here in Raleigh. Well, he's based out in Fayetteville, which is over by about an hour and a half from where I'm at. So Rico, thank you for submitting your image. So there's something that I want to do with this image, which I haven't done before, which is I want to read what Rico said about this image when he submitted it. So let me do that really quickly. My submission for critique. This shoot came with some self-inflicted challenges. 1, it was a rainy day. 2, I limited myself to only 2 speed lights instead of strobes. 3, I wanted to have a combination of dramatic natural light, if that makes sense. So those were the things that Rico had to say. So now let me give you some of the camera settings that he had and the lighting setup that he had with respect to this image. ISO. The ISO on this image was 50. The focal length that he chose for this shot was 28. His f-stop was 2.8. His shutter speed was 1/200th of a second. And he had 2 speed lights in a Westcott Apollo orb. He also used his Canon 5D Mark II with a Tamron 28-75 lens. Now, the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to give the viewer some context into how this image was created, because this is a pretty awesome image. And I just wanted to give you guys some feedback as to what was used, how we used it, so that if you guys wanted to go and recreate it, something like this, at least you'll have the tools, the equipment in order to do it. Now it's just a matter of you guys executing to make it happen, right? Creating the vision, to take those tools and to make it happen. So that said, let's jump straight into the lighting in this image. So from a lighting perspective, the lighting is pretty awesome. He has the lighting coming in from camera left. Now, it's a Westcott Apollo box. I'm very familiar with it because he recommended it to me and I purchased it based on his recommendation. So Rico, thank you very much for that lighting source because it is definitely awesome. It's a very soft light. So that's pretty much what's happening here. We have a very soft light. So in this shot, like he said, he was trying to go for a dramatic shot. Now, dramatic shots for me are always great. I like it. But what's also interesting is also making sure that you have details in the shadow. Now, in this shot, we have both. We have a great balance of light and shadow because you could see the light obviously and you could see the shadow there, but you can also see the details in the shadow, which makes this shot for me very interesting and very dramatic, which is what his intent was. So from a lighting perspective, I really don't have much to say or adjust with respect to the lighting. Rico, you did an awesome job with the lighting. So without further ado, I'm just gonna move on because like I said, I really have nothing else to say with respect to the lighting. So great job with that. All right, guys, let's get into the posing in this image. So from a posing perspective, I think Rico and Nicolette did an awesome job. Nicolette is the model in this image, and Nicolette and I have worked in the past before. And I will link one of those videos up here of one of the photo shoots that we did in the past in the event that you guys haven't seen it before. Nicolette is pretty awesome. She goes above and beyond on every photo shoot to do whatever she can to make the shoot happen. So Nicolette, thank you for everything that you've done for me in the past. Thank you for your support. I sincerely appreciate that. So now let's talk about the posing. So like I said, the posing in this job, I think you guys nailed it. It is pretty awesome. It's not too much. It's just enough to make the viewer come in and look at this image a little bit more. The only thing I would say with respect to the posing is with respect to the hair. Now, obviously it's not a posing thing. This is more of like a details type thing. So usually when you shooting a model, one of the things that most models complain about is their neck. Like, for example, the first model I ever met that talked about their neck was a person by the name of Orlando. I will link his video up here as well in the event that you haven't seen it. So when I met Orlando, you know, was telling me the basics about, he's a seasoned model, so he basically was telling me about certain things that you should look out for when you're working with models, right? So one of the things that he told me was, more importantly, models like to see their neck. So when they're going to an agency and stuff like that, the agency likes to see neck. So when I'm looking at this image, obviously I know Rico have other images in this series, but obviously we're looking at just this one image. So looking at this one image, the only thing I would say is if her hair that's blocking her neck, if you could have moved that hair off maybe onto the other side so that we could see more of her neck. And that's a little thing, but like I said, it's just this one image. That's it. That's all I have to say with respect. Actually, no, there's one more thing. The other thing that I wanted to say is with respect to her legs. Now, the leg, I wish I could have seen more of her leg in this shot. Right now, I know the dress is designed in this fashion, but with the composition, right, which I'll get to later on, but with this composition chosen, a little bit of her leg would have given her a little bit more height, right? And again, like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about why that is important with respect to the composition, but with this pose and that composition, a little bit of the leg would have sincerely helped give her a little bit more height in this image. So those are the two things that I wanted to talk about with respect to the posing. But overall, like I said, you guys nailed it. All right, guys, so now let's talk about the composition in this image. When you're trying to include a large object, larger than your subject, in your shot, Generally, what you want to do is move your subject away from the object that is larger than them, right? Because it has to do all with perspective, right? If you are closer to the larger subject or object, you will appear smaller in proximity to that object, right? However, if you move your subject away from that large object and you change your focal length, which you probably have like a tighter focal length on your subject, then what happens is your subject now becomes a little bit larger than the object that you are trying to put into your image, right? So the challenge that we have here with this particular image is that we can clearly see that the object behind the subject is larger, right? Now, because Rico chose a wider focal length to basically get that object in the shot as well as the model, what it created is a compressed look on the model. And what I mean by that is that the model now appears a little bit short in height because of that focal length. So what I would suggest is one, I would suggest, just adding a little bit more leg maybe would give her, that perception of a little bit more height. Or I would have changed my perspective, which is probably, as opposed to shooting it straight on, I would probably just lower my camera angle and shoot up. If I wanted to shoot exactly the way Rico shot it here, I would have just changed my camera angle and go down and shoot up. That would have changed my perspective and changed hers in proximity to the camera, which would then give her a perception of a little bit more height because you're shooting from a lower camera angle up, right? So that's the only thing that I noticed with the composition in this image, is that the perspective is just a little bit off, right? Because the model, which is supposed to be, the main attraction to this image, appears to be a little bit compressed and short. That's the only thing I noticed with respect to the composition, but overall, I think you did a pretty good job. All right, guys, let's move on to image number 2. So this image was submitted by this gentleman. Thank you very much, Jamil, for submitting your image. I sincerely appreciate it. So now let's dive into this image, okay? All right, I'm sorry, that was bad, but let's talk about the image. All right, so now let's talk about what Jamil said about his image when he submitted it. Camera equipment used is a Canon 6D with a Tamron 70-200 2.8 VC lens. Lighting used is a Adorama Rovolite 600B shot through a 47-inch octagon softbox. The settings that he used were 1/160th of a second, that was his shutter speed. His f-stop was 2.8. His ISO was 125 with a strobe set at 1/64th power. He did this post-production in Lightroom and Photoshop. So now let's jump straight into the lighting for this image. Because we have this large softbox, we have a very, very soft light. Now, the lighting in this image, similar to the first image that we just critiqued, is very dramatic. It's very dramatic lighting, and like I said, very soft lighting as well. The only challenge that I see with respect to the lighting in this image is that on the shadow side, not the lighting itself. The lighting, I think the lighting is pretty awesome. But I think on the shadow side of this image, now, this is about taste. This is about personal taste. This has nothing to do with the technique that you apply, Jamil. It has nothing to do with that. This is just personal taste. My personal taste versus yours versus everybody else's. So when I do dramatic shots, if you look at the shot that we just critiqued before, it's a dramatic shot, right? Same thing, is all about controlling the light, right? To make things a little bit more dramatic. So with respect to your image, right? What happened here when you did the exposure for your light, right? Basically your shadows went to, deep shadows, right? I'm sure you brought some of that up back in post, but it went deep, right? So the problem is some of the detail in the shadow area was kind of lost, like you don't see too much of the detail. So when I do dramatic shots, or that shot before, the shot from Rico, you see details in the shadows, right? So like I said, going back to taste, if I was to do a dramatic shot like this, I would want to see a little bit of details in the shadow. It will still be a dramatic shot. You just have a little bit more details so you could see right in the shadow, okay? So that was the only thing that I wish that we could see a little bit more detail in the shadow. And the way to accomplish that is twofold. One, you could use another light source to camera left, and that light source would not be overpowering the main light. It will be just a little bit less power than the main light in order to add just a little bit of detail in the shadow area, right? Now, if you didn't have a second light, the other way to do this is actually use a reflector. You could have put a reflector on camera left, and that reflector would have helped fill in some of the light, fill in some of the shadow using the main light as the light source, so it could bounce some light off of that reflector into the shadow area on your subject. And that would add just a little bit more detail, and it would help with this shot a little bit more. Third way that you could have done this if you didn't have another light is you could have exposed a little bit more for the ambient. You could have bring up your settings on your camera just a little bit more, so you could add just a little bit more of the ambient light in this shot to add just a little bit more detail. Drop your shutter speed because you shot this at 1/60th of a second. So you could have dropped your shutter speed just a little bit more. And if you dropped it, you would have add just a little bit more of that ambient light into the shot. And I think with that, for me, personal taste is what I'm saying. For me, that would add just a little bit more of an interest with this shot. Because when I look at this shot, you can immediately tell, oh, he has a light source coming from camera right. It's kind of like, taking a shot with a pop-up flash, boom, you basically would know where that light source is coming from. And that's what I see when I see this shot. Not that it's not a great shot, it is a great shot. Is that when I look at this shot, I could tell, it's pretty obvious that you could see where the light source is coming from. So I guess with photographers, what we try to do is basically mask where our lighting is coming from. And when you do these types of shots, that's what you want to do. You want to be like a magician. You want to basically, when someone looks at your image, they should be able to say, huh, how did he light this shot? That's what you want people to do. You want people to guess, how a shot was put together. Did he use natural light? Did he use strobes? What did he use to light this shot? So that's the only thing I would suggest when the next time you do one of these shots, if that makes any sense to you. But that's all I would say about the lighting. Again, nice soft light with that large octabox. So great job with that. All right, so now let's talk about the pose in this image. So from a posing perspective, overall, I think what he is trying to go for in this shot, which is a nice, elegant evening shot, I think from a posing perspective is fine. Here's a couple of things I would change to help improve this pose just a little bit. So we have a nice evening dress on this young lady. So what I would try to do is to try to reshape her just a little bit, okay? And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is because when I look at this image, this young lady is a little bit too straight, right? And as I always stated before, what I try to do with most females, for the most part, keeping context in mind, for the most part, what I try to do is add curves into a female subject, right? That's what the aim is for the most part. So keeping that in mind, what I would have done with this shot is, first of all, I noticed, Jamil, you tried to have her bend her left knee a little bit. I would have tried to force that a little bit more. Force it so it's uncomfortable to the model, but it looks good on camera, right? At least we try to say that for the most time to our subjects. Hey, it feels uncomfortable, but don't worry, it looks great on camera. So yes, I would try to force that a little bit more so that it's a little bit more pronounced on camera, right? So that bending of the left knee would have given you that S curve that we're looking for in a female subject. So that would be the first thing I would have done, okay? Bend her left knee just a little bit more, okay? Then I would ask her to push her hips back away from the camera just a little bit more. That would have forced her face a little bit towards you and a little bit towards the light source a little bit more, okay? So now we have in that little S curve in the shot. In addition to that, what that would also do is elongate her neck, right? Because now her butt is pushing back towards the wall away from the camera, and now her face is now forced towards the camera and the light. So that now elongates her neck, which is important. Like I said before, you want to see a little bit of, the subject's neck. Not that in this shot, she doesn't have a neck, she does, but it would just help, make it a little bit longer, which would be great. So the other thing in this image that I would adjust to enhance it just a little bit more is her fingers, okay? So I know right now she's playing with her hair in the image, right? So when you snap the shot, you pretty much snapped it at a point where when she was playing, her fingers were just a little bit awkward. So what I would have asked the model to do, right? If you just wanted to have her keep her hand exactly where it is, I would have her, instead of her, playing with her hair like that, I would have asked her to basically, just position her hands in this fashion where, it's a little bit more elegant and her fingers is not awkward. Right now it's just like poking out and it just feels a little bit misplaced. So I would just ask her just to, elegantly place her hands in this fashion, and that would add a little bit more of interest to the shot as opposed to more of a little bit of a distraction. But, overall, I think from a posing perspective, overall, it's totally fine. So I hope those little tips were helpful. With that said, I will be moving on to composition. Now let's talk about the composition in this image. So from a compositional perspective, let's talk about subject placement, okay? So Jamil placed his subject dead centered in the image. I'm not opposed to putting subjects in the dead center of any image, right? I'm not opposed to putting subjects to the left, right, whatever. I have no rule against putting subjects anywhere in a particular frame. The only rule I have is, does it make sense to me as the photographer, okay? That's number one. Does it make sense to me when I compose this shot? The next thing is, from a viewer perspective, what is it that I'm trying to portray to the viewer? Am I trying to have them just look at my subject alone and move on? Or am I trying to get them to enjoy the image by reading the image from left to right? Basically, how people normally read, right? So when you look at the image, you look at your subject, and then you enjoy the rest of the environment in the image, right? If that's the goal. Okay, so from a compositional perspective, that's the general rule of thumb for me. I try to figure out what interests me first of all, and then how will the viewer interpret that image, okay? And if I cannot compose a shot where I'm at a happy place, I don't take the shot. If I can't compose a shot where it wouldn't make sense to the viewer, I don't take the shot, okay? There's certain shots that I would take because I really don't have any choice but to take it. If you're at a wedding or whatever, and you have a person in the background with their phone, trying to take a picture while you're trying to take a picture, and the kiss is happening, you probably have no other choice but to take that shot. It's, mandatory, right? But if you had a choice, think about what you're about to take, think about why you're about to take it, and then take it. So I don't have any fast or loose rules putting people in the middle of the frame. The only thing I would say is, does it add any interest to the shot? So now I said all of that to say this. With respect to Jamil's photo, the challenge that I find with this image is I'm trying to find where the interest is. I know the first thing you look at is the subject, and you did a pretty good job with that. My eyes is zeroed in on the subject. But after my eyes zeroed in on the subject, I pretty much, that's it. I don't move anywhere else. So from a viewer perspective, I don't move anywhere else. And if that was your goal, Jamil, that was the ultimate goal of this shot, which is for the viewer to zero in on the subject and stop, then that's it. You accomplished the goal, because that's exactly what I did. I zeroed in on the subject and I stopped. But if you wanted people to zero in on the subject and then enjoy the image a little bit more by reading from left to right and studying it, then what I would suggest is, probably choosing a different type of composition to include something else to add just a little bit more interest into it. Maybe, play a little bit more with the composition with that flag, if that's a flag in the background. Play a little bit more, maybe having her on the left side of the frame and having that flag to the right side of the frame. Have people just read just a little bit more as to, what is going on there, why is that flag there, have people think about it just a little bit more, force them to think about what's going on in this image, or have them forced to put their own spin on it, their own story as to why this young lady is there and why that flag is there. So those are the types of things that you would want to think about when you are composing your shot. Basically, how your viewers is going to interpret your particular shot. So that's all I have to say with respect to the composition. But like I said, if this was your goal, for people to look at your subject and stop, that's it. You pretty much did it, But if you wanted to, add just a little bit more interest into the shot, my suggestion is just play with the composition just a little bit more, nudge the viewer into a storyline, if you would. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you very much, Jamil. All right, guys, now let's get to the rating of these two images. So the first image on deck is Rico's image. Light. I gave this image a 5. Pose. I gave this image a 4. Composition. I gave this image a 3. Overall, this image received a rating of 4. All right, guys, let's get on to the second image submitted by Jamil. Light. I gave this image a 4. Pose. I gave this image a 3. Composition. I gave this image a 3. Overall, this image received a rating of 3.33. All right, guys, thank you very much for submitting your images. I sincerely appreciate it. I hope the image creators got some fantastic feedback from what I had to say today. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was also helpful to the viewers. Thank you very much for watching this video. Guys, I've been enjoying these video critique. Like I said, I can't believe we are on video number 20. So that's pretty awesome. Guys, if you haven't submitted your images to be critiqued yet, please go ahead and do so, because this is how everyone learned. This is how I learned. I learned a great deal from critiquing these videos, from critiquing these images over the past few weeks. So guys, thank you again for submitting, and I look forward to critiquing more images in the future. Again, thank you for viewing, thank you for subscribing, and I thank you all for the support. That is it. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with your friends and family. And please put some feedback down below and let me know what you think about this video. And guys, if you got this far in the video, you must be enjoying this content and you must be enjoying this channel. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next Monday.